Object blocking is something that people do when they're feeling nervous. It's another way that they block their torso to protect themselves. We do this subconsciously, and we often do it with objects. We can do it with our arms as well, like when we cross our arms over our chest. But women often use their purse. You see people clutch or carry notebooks. Teenagers in high school are almost always clutching their notebook to their chest. I know actually teenagers who specifically will take out notebooks out of their backpack to be able to walk down the hall with something quote unquote protecting them. Now, obviously, no one's going to hit them in the stomach, or hopefully not as they walk down the hallway. It's an unconscious way of wanting to protect yourself. People also do this with papers, water, by clutching it in front of them. So the problem is that when people are doing this blocking, they're also more closed-minded. Just like those studies that we looked at earlier that show that when you're blocking your torso, you also have increased cortisol. When you're holding your arms or blocking your torso, you're less open-minded to ideas. So what you want to do before you go into a sales meeting is actually prepare materials or props to be able to disengage that blocking material. So oftentimes I'll have a client sit down, and if I notice they're engaging in blocking, I'll pass them my business card, and that will often have them, they'll sit forward and they'll take it with their hands. That can loosen up the blocking. I'll give them pamphlets, I'll ask if they want coffee, I'll even do a product demo. And you'll see that that actually will get people a little bit more loose because they're able to do something with their arms instead of just blocking their torso from you. So always have materials or props on hand to disengage object blocking. A couple of other really quick sales do's, good things to do when you're building relationships with clients. I would actually recommend filming yourself pitch to a friend and then watching if you do some of these without even realizing it. So some people, they automatically clench their fists when they're nervous or stressed. This is actually a nonverbal cue for anger or closed-mindedness, defensiveness. So you want to watch for clenched fists and get yourself in the habit of unclenching them. One thing that you can do to not do this is hold a pen. That can loosen your grip up. Second, if you're with a shy client, you can try tilting your head. Tilting the head is a nonverbal sign of engagement. So for example, if you were to ask someone, do you hear that noise outside? Almost always they'll tilt their head to the side and try to listen. That's because nonverbally, that's what we do when we're really trying to hear something. So this is a great thing you can do with clients to show them you're engaged, you're listening, all you want to do is hear them. Encouraging pro-connection feelings. So pro-connection feelings are empathy, interest, open-mindedness, fondness, admiration, contentedness. When you're meeting with clients, you always want to watch your video and see if those feelings are coming across, if you're showing those pro-connection feelings. Let's talk about some sales don'ts. So here you want to discourage anti-connection feelings. This is any kind of sarcastic remarks, criticism, defensiveness, disrespect, superiority, or withdrawal. That's like stonewalling. So again, while you're filming yourself, you want to rate yourself or have your friends rate you on which feelings you're doing more of, the pro-connection or anti-connection feelings. Another thing that I always really want salespeople to be aware of is not smiling nervously. So we talked about when reading the face, the importance of a genuine smile. That a genuine smile reaches the upper cheek muscles and the eyes, or the crow's feet. People have been trained from a very young age, especially women, that when they're nervous, they should smile. People are also told, oh, if you want to bond with a client, just smile at them. The problem with that is if you're smiling nervously or you're smiling fakely, people pick up on that inauthenticity. So I actually will tell you to smile genuinely, smile purposefully. Smile when you actually feel happy. Hopefully when you first meet someone, you're happy to meet them. Otherwise, don't try to smile to cover up nerves because that is a nonverbal cue for inauthenticity. Some other sales don'ts are the ankle lock. So women usually engage in this more than men. They cross their legs and they have their ankle wrap around their other ankle. They can also do this underneath the chair. This is a very shy, introverted stance. It also increases your cortisol levels or your stress hormones. Unfortunately, a lot of women have learned to do that pose and it's comfortable for them. So if you can train yourself out of it by keeping your feet firmly planted or just a single leg cross, that's going to be far better for you and for your client to not show that you're shy. It's also a thing that little girls do is they do that ankle lock. So you don't want to remind your client that you're childlike. You want to show them that you're an expert. You also want to reduce as much as possible nervous gestures. Jiggling, fidgeting, drumming, tapping. In your video that you watch while you record yourself, count how many times you do a fidget that doesn't have a purpose, right? So you can, of course, move to grab a piece of paper, move if you have an actual itch, but how many times you have unnecessary movements and try to cut back on those. You also, of course, want to avoid crossing your arms at all times. There is never a good time to have your arms crossed. I know that we're very used to doing this, but again, it increases our cortisol levels and lowers testosterone and makes us look defensive. So be sure to try to get yourself out of the habit of crossing your arms. One thing that I do to break this habit is I'll either hold like a wine glass if I'm at a networking event. I'll hold a pen, which is very helpful. These are really easy physical reminders telling you how you should be holding your arms. I have a couple of notes for women here on selling. First, research shows that women who wear glasses and makeup are seen as the most intelligent. Not glasses alone, not makeup alone, but glasses and makeup. I am definitely not suggesting to go out and buy fake glasses. Also, if you're not comfortable wearing makeup, absolutely no problem. But if you have the choice to wear glasses and makeup and you would like to, that is the power combination. Another thing that women do that men do not do is they flash the inner part of their wrist. That is because A, we release pheromones from that point, so we do that to attract men, but we also do it because it's a submissive gesture, so it's considered very feminine. You'll notice that women typically smoke with their wrist turned out, so their inner wrist is exposed, whereas men usually keep their inner wrist close to the body. I have actually a very interesting picture I took, sorry for the poor quality, at a studio. So I walked by this poster in the office of the studio, which was a bunch of anchors, and I thought it was very interesting because it shows the limp wrist. So limp wrist or exposed wrists are two submissive behaviors. So you can see in this image, almost all of the women have these sort of limp wrists where their hands are hanging below their wrist line. This is a sign of submission. It's also a sign of femininity. If you're a woman in sales, you do not want to do this. You want to, in a way, act more like a man and that you keep your wrists solid and you don't expose or flip your wrists out. Also, be sure not to inauthentically smile, which we mentioned women have the tendency to do more than men, and also bobbleheading. This is something that women often do. They'll nod continuously, almost like they look like a bobblehead. So be careful to keep your head more still and only nod when you're actually in agreement. Let's talk about some tips for selling in different environments. Of course, a lot of people do sales meetings or meetings with clients over meals. From a nonverbal perspective, this is both good and bad. Studies have shown that breaking bread with someone is great for bonding and building rapport. There is something instinctual about it. Eating with someone and sharing a meal goes back to our caveman days and sharing a hunted animal. So this is great for getting to know you meetings or just rapport building meetings. And you definitely want to encourage grabbing a meal over coffee or a drink if you want to build a longer term relationship. However, in terms of sales, you want to avoid pushing a decision during a meal. This is because the brain loses blood flow during digestion when blood rushes to the stomach and the gut. So our reasoning capabilities are lower during meals, and it will be harder for a client to commit to your sale. This is something to keep in mind when planning how you want to bond with a client or pitch someone. So I highly recommend breaking bread with them when you're first getting to know each other, but not doing the official sale until you're in the office. Other ways that people sell in different environments are virtual selling and cold calling. And my biggest tip for this is you have to try to leverage as much nonverbal as you possibly can. If you're working with clients virtually, or if you're following up with a client on an email after a sales pitch, you can always use many of the nonverbal tips that we discussed in a video. First, you can send a video in your introduction. I can't tell you the power of sending a video introduction of yourself along with your pitch or intro email, especially if you're cold calling. And we're going to talk about how to do an elevator pitch later in the course. But putting this all in a video can really make you stand out and helps you convey confidence and warmth, which you can't possibly do in an email. Second, if you work with clients, send your project updates in a video. Oftentimes, upsells or real client maintenance happens in the middle of a project during updates. So I highly recommend sending a video summary of your updates about once a month. This is amazingly effective, and clients love being able to see you, quote unquote, in person. It also helps them be more patient if you're late on a project, and they appreciate your work more. And by the way, I'm not talking about high production value videos. I'm going to show you an example of a video intro that I sent to someone that's just casually in my office, very easy. I put my desk lamp on, nothing special, no special mic. I send casual videos like this all the time, and it's amazing how much positive feedback I get back from them because first, I'm communicating with both my nonverbal and verbal, and second, it's much more personal. It differentiates me from my competitors. Another way that you can use video is to Skype client meetings. Try using video Skype for as many client calls as you possibly can so you can see each other as you talk. Research shows that eye contact with a video camera over Skype actually increases the rate of yes in a sales meeting. So even looking through a camera gets you some of the powerful eye gazing that you would get in person to person. I really recommend getting a laptop or a video cam so that you can Skype with clients. Lastly, if you're trying to get a meeting with a VIP or someone you want to network with, send a personal video introduction. These are usually very effective. I have never once been turned down for a coffee or lunch after sending a video. Even when I cold email someone, an in-person video with the nonverbal above that we talked about really works. So here's an example of a video I sent. It was a cold email. I didn't know this person. So I wrote an email out and then I sent this very, very short video to him. Filmed it in my home. Again, I was with my iPhone camera actually, no mic, and just my desk lamp. Hi Dave, I'm Vanessa Van Edwards and I'm so happy to be connecting with you. I really hope that there's some synergy between what you do with public speaking and some of my work with body language and lie detection. I would love to take you out for coffee and pick your brain. You name the day of the week and I'll be there. So you can see this video is very short, very simple, but effective, and it's so much more clickable than an email or a link. So before we review what we've learned in selling and client relations, I always want to do a remember slide. These are things from other lessons that you can also use for selling and client relations, and I'll have them at the end of each of the lectures. So for this one, don't forget to read your client's microexpressions, review that read your face lecture, and really look for fear, anger, fake happiness so you can address their emotions right away. Also remember to take baby steps. All these tips get better with practice, so don't try to tackle them all at once. Remember to keep your hands visible. We talked about that during the rapport building lecture, how important it is to keep your hands above the table so that your clients see you as trusting and authentic. Also remember to speak your client's learning style by listening to the different kinds of words they use, and that will help you know how to demo to them best. Don't forget to prep your confidence beforehand with those power poses. And of course, use the power of touch wisely so that when you shake hands with your client, consider possibly touching them on the elbow to really build that rapport. Okay, now our review of what we learned in this section. So first, the nervous cues you want to spot in your client and avoid yourself. Also, the excitement cues that you want to recognize to know that it's going well. And you can also show some of these if you'd like. Always try to identify blocking behavior and avoid it by preparing for props to get them out of that blocking body language. Some of the intermediate tips that we learned is showing humble confidence, so taking those power poses that you do before a meeting and translating them into less aggressive poses. We also learned the power of voice tone. This is a more intermediate one, to go into the lower end of your voice tone to not have that high-pitched childlike voice. We also learned to try to avoid eating and selling whenever possible because our brain is not at its full mental capacity. Some of the advanced tips that we learned were avoiding above traps, to always try to be on the same equal level as your client. To use the bow if you have a shy or intimidated client, that can help take the edge off of your words. Of course, to send video proposals if you're working virtually. That can take a little bit of getting used to, but I highly recommend practicing it and making sure that you have the right equipment on your camera, on your computer, or on your phone camera. And then, of course, all the do's and don'ts of nonverbal during sales, like trying to avoid smiling nervously, never crossing your arms, and of course, avoiding the ankle lock are just a few of the sales do's and don'ts that we learned.